Before that Tuesday, my life was a meticulously constructed edifice of routine and perceived stability. I was 32, a senior software engineer at Nexus Innovations, a tech company in Seattle that, to me, represented the pinnacle of my professional aspirations. For 7 years, I had poured my heart and soul into that place. I'd started as a junior developer, clawing my way up, sacrificing evenings and weekends, driven by an almost obsessive desire to prove myself. My cubicle, adorned with nerdy figurines and a perpetually overflowing coffee mug, felt like a second home. My colleagues were more than just coworkers. They were my tribe, my intellectual sparring partners, the people I shared triumphs and frustrations with. I was good at what I did, recognized for my problem-solving skills and my ability to untangle the most convoluted code. My projects were always delivered on time, often ahead of schedule, and I genuinely believed I was an indispensable cog in the company's well-oiled machine. Outside of work, life was equally comfortable, if a little predictable. I had a cozy apartment in Capitol Hill, a reliable old Subaru, and a steady, if not overly exciting, social circle. My biggest financial goal was to save enough for a down payment on a small house within the next 2 years. Every paycheck, a significant portion of it, went into that savings account, a tangible symbol of my future security. I was a creature of habit, finding comfort in the rhythm of my days. My morning coffee, the predictable traffic on I-5, the hum of the servers, the camaraderie of lunch breaks, the evening run along Lake Union. These were the anchors of my existence. I felt a quiet pride in my self-sufficiency, in the life I had built for myself through hard work and dedication. I was, in short, content, perhaps even a little complacent. The tech industry had seen some shifts, of course. Whispers of restructuring and optimization had been floating around for months, but they always seemed to be happening in other departments or to people who weren't as essential as I was. Our team, the core development unit for Nexus's flagship product, felt insulated, untouchable. We were the engine, the innovators, the ones who kept the lights on. I dismissed the rumors as corporate white noise, convinced that my years of loyalty and consistent high performance would shield me from any potential fallout. I was wrong. Terribly, catastrophically wrong. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, nestled innocuously between a project update and a team meeting reminder. The subject line was bland. Meeting request, HR. My stomach did a small, uneasy flip. HR meetings were rarely good news, but I brushed it off. Maybe a new policy update, or a mandatory training session. I clicked on it half-heartedly and saw the names: Sarah Chen from HR and Mark Jensen, my department head. My heart rate quickened. Mark was usually too busy for impromptu meetings. This felt different. A cold dread began to seep into my veins. I tried to push it away, to rationalize it, but the unease persisted, a low thrumming beneath my calm facade. At 10 a.m., I walked into the small, sterile HR conference room. Sarah sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. Mark was beside her, his gaze fixed on a spot just over my shoulder, avoiding eye contact. The air in the room was thick, heavy with unspoken words. I sat down, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, suddenly acutely aware of the silence, the fluorescent hum of the lights, the faint scent of stale coffee. Sarah began, her voice calm, almost robotic. Thank you for coming in, Alex. As you know, Nexus Innovations has been undergoing some strategic restructuring to better align with market demands. My mind immediately went blank, the words washing over me without comprehension. I knew what was coming. Every fiber of my being screamed it. This wasn't a policy update. This was it. And as part of this difficult but necessary process, we've had to make some difficult decisions regarding our workforce. Effective immediately, your position is being eliminated. The words hit me like a physical blow. Eliminated. Not you're fired, not we're letting you go, but eliminated. As if I was a redundant piece of code, a bug to be patched out of existence. My ears began to ring, and the room seemed to tilt. I felt a strange disassociation, as if I was watching myself from above, a character in a bad dream. I heard Sarah continue, detailing severance packages, COBRA benefits, outplacement services. Her voice was a distant buzz, like a fly trapped in a jar. Mark still hadn't looked at me. "Mark?" I managed to croak, my voice hoarse, barely recognizable. What does this mean?" He finally met my gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and discomfort. "Alex, this isn't about your performance. You've been an invaluable member of the team. It's purely a business decision. We're consolidating roles, shifting priorities." His words trailed off, hollow and meaningless. I felt a surge of something hot and bitter rise in my throat. Not about my performance? 7 years. 7 years of dedication, of loyalty, of pouring my life into this company, and it meant nothing. I was just a number on a spreadsheet, a line item to be cut. The world, which had been spinning so predictably, suddenly lurched to a halt, then began to spin wildly in the opposite direction. My carefully constructed edifice of stability crumbled around me, leaving me standing in the rubble, disoriented and utterly lost. The next few hours were a blur of surreal indignity. I was escorted back to my desk by Sarah, who stood by silently as I packed my personal belongings into a cardboard box. My colleagues, usually bustling with energy, were hushed, their faces a mixture of shock and awkward sympathy. Some offered mumbled apologies, others just averted their eyes. It felt like a public execution, a stark warning to anyone who thought they were safe. Each item I placed in the box, my favorite coffee mug, a framed photo of my dog, a stress ball, felt heavy, imbued with the weight of my shattered future. The figurines, once symbols of my identity, now seemed to mock me. I walked out of the office building, the heavy glass doors closing behind me with a final thud, severing my connection to the place that had defined me for so long. The Seattle rain, a familiar comfort, now felt like a cold, judgmental shower. I got into my Subaru, the cardboard box on the passenger seat, and just sat there, the engine off, the silence deafening. Where do I go? What do I do? The questions hammered at my mind, each one a fresh wave of panic. My phone buzzed, a text from Andrea asking about weekend plans. I stared at it, unable to form a reply. How do you tell someone your entire world just imploded? The first few days were a haze of disbelief and despair. I barely left my apartment, the blinds drawn, the world outside a distant, irrelevant hum. I scrolled endlessly through job boards, each listing a cruel reminder of my sudden unemployment. My savings, once a source of pride, now felt like a rapidly dwindling lifeline. The shame was a constant companion, a heavy cloak that smothered me. How could I have been so blind, so naive? I replayed every conversation, every project, searching for a sign, a missed warning. There was none. It was just business.
The routine I had so cherished was gone, replaced by an unsettling void. My mornings were no longer defined by the rush to beat traffic, but by the crushing weight of waking up with nowhere to go. My evenings were not spent unwinding after a productive day, but staring at the ceiling, consumed by anxiety about the future. I started to isolate myself, avoiding calls from friends, ashamed to admit what had happened. The fear of judgment, of being seen as a failure, was almost as debilitating as the financial uncertainty. The job search was brutal. I updated my resume, polished my LinkedIn profile, and sent out dozens of applications, Each rejection email, or worse, the deafening silence after an interview, chipped away at my already fragile self-esteem. I felt myself spiraling, my confidence eroding with each passing day. My carefully cultivated professional identity, the one I had built over years, felt like it was dissolving into thin air. I started to doubt my skills, my worth, everything I thought I knew about myself. The climax of this period of despair came about 2 months after the firing. My savings were dwindling faster than I had anticipated, and the reality of my financial situation became starkly clear. I had bills to pay, rent, student loans, the relentless march of expenses that didn't care about my unemployment. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at my bank statement, the numbers mocking me. The house down payment fund, my dream, was now being eaten away by basic living costs. I felt a profound sense of failure, not just professionally, but personally. I was supposed to be building a future, not watching it crumble. That night, I called my older sister, Emily, who lived across the country. I hadn't told her the full extent of my struggles, trying to maintain a brave front. But that night, the dam broke. I poured out everything: the shock, the shame, the fear, the endless rejections. I cried, openly and unashamedly, for the first time since that Tuesday morning. Emily listened patiently, without judgment, letting me vent until I was exhausted. When I finally stopped, she said, her voice soft but firm, "Alex, this isn't the end. It's a detour. You are more than your job. You are talented, smart, and resilient. This is a chance to figure out what you really want, not just what you thought you should want." Her words, simple as they were a lifeline. They didn't magically solve my problems, but they shifted something within me. They reminded me that my identity wasn't solely tied to Nexus Innovations, that my worth wasn't determined by a corporate decision. The resolution didn't come overnight, but that conversation with Emily was the turning point. I started to shift my approach. Instead of frantically applying for every software engineering role, I began to think about what truly excited me. I revisited old passion projects, coding ideas I'd shelved due to lack of time. I started networking more strategically, connecting with people in different sectors, exploring new technologies. I even took a few online courses in areas I'd always been curious about but never pursued. It was through one of these courses, an advanced data science module, that I met a former professor who is starting a small, innovative tech startup focused on environmental solutions. We clicked immediately. He was impressed by my portfolio and my renewed passion. After several conversations and a rigorous technical interview, he offered me a position. It wasn't the senior role I had held before, and the pay was slightly less, but the work was exciting, meaningful, and the team was small, agile, and genuinely collaborative. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to build something new, something that aligned more closely with my values. The journey back to employment was long and arduous, filled with moments of self-doubt and despair. But I made it. I learned to live on less, to budget meticulously, and to appreciate every small victory. I also reconnected with friends, opening up about my struggles, and found immense support and understanding. The shame gradually faded, replaced by a quiet strength. After that trip, my life truly changed in fundamental ways. I'm no longer the person who fears unpredictability or clings desperately to a rigid schedule. I understood that comfort is good, even necessary, but true growth and self-discovery happen when you step decisively out of your comfort zone, when you face the unknown head-on. I learned to appreciate the simplest things: the warmth of hot tea, the reassuring hum of a working phone, the solid comfort of a roof over my head. I realized with a startling clarity how dependent we are on technology, and how quickly we can become utterly helpless when it fails, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. But most importantly, I understood how crucial it is to have people you can rely on by your side, true companions in adversity. Andrew, despite his own bewilderment and fear, remained my anchor, a steady presence in the chaos. And the Forester, a complete stranger, became a true savior for us. His quiet strength,
kindness, and ancient wisdom, leaving a deep, indelible impression on my soul. This story, this unexpected ordeal, taught me profound humility before nature's raw power. The mountains are not just beautiful landscapes to be admired. They are a formidable force that demands respect, preparation, and an understanding of one's own limitations. It also taught me to believe in myself, to tap into reserves of resilience I didn't know I possessed, even when it seemed like all was lost. I no longer feared challenges. On the contrary, I now actively seek them out, albeit with a newfound respect and caution. Because it is precisely in such moments, when everything goes wrong, that we truly get to know ourselves, our capabilities, and the depths of our inner strength. Now, when I plan trips, whether it's a weekend getaway or a more ambitious journey, I always have a comprehensive backup plan, extra phone batteries, and most importantly, a profound understanding that not everything can be controlled, and that's perfectly okay. Sometimes the most impactful and transformative stories are born not from meticulous planning, but from the very worst situations, from the unexpected twists and turns that force us to adapt and grow. And this story, this harrowing yet ultimately enlightening journey, is mine. Thanks for watching. Have you ever been let go from a job you thought was secure, or had a moment where everything changed without warning? Share your story in the comments. Someone out there might really need to hear it right now.